Good morning and welcome. We have come together today to remember with love and appreciation the life of Lolinda Lucille Percheson, the vibrant yet soft-hearted woman who was a caring, loving wife and mother, a sister you'll never forget, a proud granny, and a delightful friend and relative to many. And it goes without saying, she will be greatly missed by all who knew her. Lolinda's family are, of course, experiencing a huge sense of loss, and it is a comfort for the family to have your presence, both here and online, to be surrounded in your warm and supportive thoughts, and to know that they're not alone on this path. It is much appreciated that you are here. My name is Connie Kobilko. I am a life celebrant, and it is my honor and privilege to be with all of you here today as we share in gratitude Lolinda's beautiful life, a woman who lived, guided, and loved each day of her 97 years. Today, we'll have a celebration of life to recognize the beautiful, heartfelt ways that Lolinda has touched so many people. To Lolinda's family, Dennis and Linda, to Larry and Dorothy, her sister Dolores and sister-in-law Mary, her many beautiful grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and even 2 great-great-grandchildren. And to all of you present and those online, I express my deepest condolences at this most difficult of times. We will begin our celebration of life today with a special ceremony that holds much symbolism and meaning as we reflect upon Lolinda's life with us. Flowers are a beautiful expression of words that we wish to share, words that come from the heart. And flowers are a symbol of life and the connection that is created between 2 people. They are a beautiful way to show our love and appreciation of memories that we have shared together. Lolinda's family were really important to her, and they shared wonderful moments together. And the floral stem that they are holding represents the beautiful relationship that was shared with Lolinda, be it as a son, a daughter-in-law, a grandchild, or a great-grandchild. And as the family will be placing the flower in the vase, I ask that you have a moment of just quiet and share a heartfelt thought and reflection, a beautiful memory, or you may place an I love you into your heart before you place the flower into the vase. So I now invite Lolinda's family to please come forward for the placement of the flowers. Lolinda loved to grow flowers, and her gardens flourished under her green thumb. And these flowers are a beautiful remembrance of Lolinda's unlimited love, her unstoppable spirit, and her heartfelt relationship with each one of you. And as you all can see, Lolinda created a beautiful bouquet in her garden of life. We have come together to acknowledge and share both our joy in the gift her life was to us, but also the emptiness that her passing brings. And all the many emotions that you may be feeling, they are a reflection of your love and relationship with Lolinda. And there's no question, life is much different without her in a physical sense. And even if you weren't always with her, you knew that she was just a phone call away. Life has changed. Life is a journey for us all, and it's difficult to bear the death of someone who is so important in our lives. And you're probably feeling that unfamiliar feeling, and it's hard to put it into words. It could be a space, an emptiness, and that is the space that Lolinda filled. So it's important to think about all those many wonderful things for which she will be remembered, for there have been plenty of experiences in her life and many moments that were shared with all of you. These are what will keep you going and in time lighten your hearts and help you to smile again. Let's try to fill that space with gratitude to have had Lolinda in our lives and enrich our days in so many ways. It is my hope that you help and support one another through this walk in life, that you share all those wonderful memories that you've had, because they will truly help to lighten your hearts. Each of you will have your own memories of your time and relationship with Lolinda. And to have had Lolinda with you in this lifetime really was a gift. And whatever it is you'll remember her for, be grateful for those moments and all of those experiences, for they are Lolinda's gift to you. Our celebration today will pay tribute to aspects of Lolinda's life that were significant, elements that celebrate her past and as well her present. And I'd like to invite Dion to share a gospel reading with us.
From Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 1 through 6. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
Grandparents have a special place in our lives and are a positive influence in many ways. And this granny held an honored place in her family. She was the historian and held the key to the family's history. And with her sharp mind, she could remember everything and was the perfect storyteller. She was the mentor and teacher who offered encouragement, nurtured your strengths, and provided inspiration. And a granny's love really is unconditional, and that was so true of Lolinda. And when you even say the word granny, you already feel her love deep within your hearts. I invite her granddaughter, Nicole, to share her remembrances with us.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank all of you here in person and those of you joining us by live stream for taking time out of your day to be with us and help celebrate one of the most witty, strong, resilient women I know. I'm so grateful that Granny had a very long, fulfilling time here, and we got to spend a lot more years with her than most people get to spend with their parents or their grandparents. But it's still difficult to say goodbye to somebody who was such a huge part of our life. There's a lot to say about someone who's lived for 97 years, especially someone who loved to tell stories like she did. So I've tried to capture the highlights so that we're not here all day. On April 27th, 1925, Lillian and Patrick McManus welcomed Lolinda Lucille into their family. She was the 8th of 11 children, 4 sons and 7 daughters. Lolinda spent her first years of life growing up in Calgary, where her father was a distinguished businessman. When the Great Depression hit, the family moved to a farm in the small community of Mourne. This was a big change for the McManuses, but it taught them how to be hardworking and independent people. Lessons for the children that would be of great benefit later in life. When Lolinda was 13 years old, the family once again relocated and returned to the city, but this time it was to Edmonton. Lolinda spent her teenage years growing up on the northeast side. She wasn't your typical girly girl. In fact, she was a true tomboy at heart. She loved climbing trees and even fell out of a few, as she liked to tell you. She enjoyed riding her bike. She liked to play ball, but she especially adored skating. She'd have a big smile across her face whenever she reminisced about the many weekends spent at the outdoor rinks with her friends. In her later teens, she decided it was time to leave school and start out in the work world. She began working at the Bay downtown, and it must have all been part of a bigger plan, because this is where she met the love of her life, Lorne Percheson. Lolinda and Lorne dated for a while, and in 1944, when she was only 19 years old, they tied the knot. It was a unique double wedding ceremony that they shared with her sister and brother-in-law, Naomi and Roland. They celebrated this special occasion by spending their honeymoon night at the Strathcona Hotel on White Ave, a big outing for them at the time. Granny and Grandpa began their new life together with only a few dollars to their name. In fact, their first few years of marriage were actually spent living with Grandpa's family, his parents. Granny recently told me that at first she wasn't quite sure how that was going to work out, but that it ended up going really well. Her new mother-in-law taught her how to sew and cook, and they got along great. And it was in this house where they started their own family, and Granny became a mom with the birth of Lawrence in 1946. Now, I had mentioned earlier that moving from the city to a farm during the Depression would come to benefit Granny and her siblings later on in life. And this is exactly where those skills of being innovative and creative and resourceful would come into play. Granny and Grandpa purchased a property in the Highlands and built their first home from the ground up, all by themselves. They continued growing their family in this new home with the arrival of Terry in 1949 and Dennis, my dad, in 1953. Grandpa's brother Mike and his wife Bertha built right next to them at the same time. So the 8 cousins from the 2 families had lots of fun growing up together, and it was really nice for Granny to have someone in the family so close to her. In 1956, they bought a lake lot at Pigeon Lake, and once again, they were very resourceful. They built the cabin from scratch using wood that Grandpa had collected from the CN yard. This cabin brought many years of fun and memories and special times with family and friends. In 1963, Granny and Grandpa embarked on a new venture and purchased an egg farm on the old Fort Road. It was definitely a learning experience, as neither of them knew anything about chickens and eggs, but it didn't take them long to figure things out, and Granny really enjoyed visiting with all of their customers. Every week, Granny and Grandpa would head out together for their egg delivery run. They often ended this outing by stopping at the Beverly Crest for a cold beer. Yes, Granny loved cold beer. One time, Granny was caught by surprise to see her youngest son, Dennis, who was still underage, sitting at the table with his friends drinking beer. I believe she may have turned a blind eye on that occasion, and if I'm being honest, I probably would have too. In 1965, Granny and Grandpa sold the cabin at Pigeon Lake and started enjoying the RV life. And they took many trips around Alberta and BC and loved going down to Oregon to visit Naomi and Rolly. After 30 years of marriage, Granny and Grandpa commenced another new journey. They decided to forgo chickens and eggs and converted the acreage into the Fort Road RV storage. Granny still loved chatting and getting to know all of their new customers. In 2002, Granny lost the love of her life. After more than 66 years together, this was a huge transition for her. She remained on the farm for one more year after Grandpa passed, and then it was time to leave. She moved into a condo in Mill Woods while Uncle Terry took over running the RV storage. Granny turned her northwest-facing balcony into a garden oasis, tons of plants out there, and enjoyed the view of the sunset every evening for 14 years. In 2017, Granny made one more move into the lodge at the Allen Gray, where she would spend the last 5 years of her life. Prior to COVID, She enjoyed playing bingo and visiting with her neighbors and celebrating the milestone birthdays of the lodge residents. The past 2 years were much harder for Granny, as they were for all seniors who had to deal with lockdowns and long periods of isolation. But tending to all her plants, watching her favorite TV shows, daily visits from Puma, Stella, and Donna at the lodge, as well as visits from us once we were permitted to go back in, kept her occupied until she went into the hospital this final time. We were very fortunate that her condo was ground level and facing the parking lot, so we could celebrate her 95th birthday together as a family, albeit from outside her patio door, but at least we were all together. I truly admired her positive attitude and outlook all throughout the pandemic. I had visited her at the end of February in 2020, just before the pandemic hit, and the next time I was able to go into her suite was August of 2021. I'll never forget just how great it felt after 18 long months to be able to finally give her a hug. How I would love to be able to just give her one more hug right now. Granny has always loved adventure and traveling. One of her favorite memories is the hot air balloon ride that Uncle Terry took her on for her 65th birthday. And aside from going to the cabin, as a young family, Granny and Grandpa took the boys on many trips around Alberta and BC. They especially enjoyed visiting the mountains and spent a lot of time at Dutch Creek. In the late 90s, in search of her family roots, Granny went to Ireland and England with her sister Veronica and her niece Rosemary. She was excited to meet many new cousins and thrilled to kiss the Barney Stone. This is the only time I know of, I think, that while Grandpa was alive, Granny ventured off without him. They did everything together. A few years after Grandpa died, Granny took a cruise along the Panama Canal with her sister-in-law, Ellen. We were so happy to see her off on her adventures again. In 2013, she went and visited Mom and Dad down south in Phoenix, and they did a ton of sightseeing, including the Grand Canyon. She was just shy of 88 years old that year, and we didn't know it at the time, but that would be her last big adventure. Granny had many passions in her life. From a young age, she loved to sing, and she ended up teaching herself how to play the organ. She could never read music, but played everything by ear. And boy, could she play and loved to do it. I used to love sitting beside her at that big organ, just mesmerized by how she didn't need to read any music. I think listening to her play all those years is definitely what sparked my love of the piano. And as Connie mentioned, Granny had the greenest of green thumbs. She loved her garden and plants and flowers of every kind, but she especially loved her tomato plants. She would keep seeds from everything and try to grow them at some point. In fact, just this spring, so 97, she pulled out some old tomato seeds, all sorts of varieties, and tried growing them in little plastic dishes in her condo. It didn't work, though. They didn't grow, and she was quite disappointed and explained everything that she did wrong to me. But Mom buys Granny a tomato plant every year from Costco, and literally in the hospital the other week, she was instructing Dad to give 1 teaspoon of fertilizer in the cup of water, and don't forget to fertilize that plant. But we were cleaning up her condo the other day, and we think that maybe she really hasn't been fertilizing anything because the container of fertilizer was rock hard. So not sure if her little experiment didn't work because the seeds were old or because she was too old. For as long as I can remember, Granny loved watching the news. She could tell you the weather and current events from any given city in the US and Canada. And don't even get her started on US politics. Right, Auntie Dolores? I know Auntie Dolores is watching right now, and she's probably agreeing with me. However, Granny's biggest passion was watching the Edmonton Oilers. Back in the 80s, her and Grandpa went to a game. This was before the days of netting above the glass. And as Murphy's Law would have it, a puck went over the glass and struck Granny right in the forehead. The stitches and the scar were not her only souvenir of this momentous occasion. For all her troubles, the Oilers gave her a puck signed by Messier and Gretzky, along with a signed stick. She gave the stick to Mom and Dad, but the puck was so precious that it has been locked away safely in a security deposit box for the last 2 decades. Granny never missed an Oiler game on TV. She was such a dedicated fan that while they were visiting the Grand Canyon, when they were visiting the Grand Canyon that year, she made Mom and Dad hurry home from the Grand Canyon to catch the Oiler game on TV. I'm so glad that her last season of NHL hockey was a real season and that she was able to watch her Oilers in 3 exciting rounds of playoffs. She was 97 years old, so she'd make sure on game day to take a good nap in the afternoon so she could stay up for all those 8 o'clock games. She loved the Oilers. But Granny's biggest love was her family, her husband, her boys, and all of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Spending time with family brought her so much joy. As kids, we spent a ton of time out at the farm, helping Granny and Grandpa. We helped in the garden. We'd have fires in the big fireplace out in the front yard, Christmas Eve dinners, playing cards, and exploring all the old treasures, lots of treasures to find out there in the barn. And once the great-grandkids came along, we spent a lot of time at the Millwoods Town Center food court because there was an indoor playground, some fast food and ice cream. It was a really great way for Granny to experience the high energy of all of the 6 great-grandkids. Granny may not have expressed her love with words often, but her big smile and her hearty hug said it all. I'm so grateful we were able to spend so much time with her during her last week here on Earth, and even more grateful that one of the last things I heard her say while she was still awake and coherent was how proud she was of all of us. Granny and Grandpa may have started out poor, but the life and family they built together left them rich with love. One of my evening visits with Granny during her final days, it was just her and I. We talked for a couple of hours about a lot of things that night. We reminisced for a while, but it also had some questions, and she answered all of them very openly. I asked her if she had any regrets. And without hesitation, she replied that she didn't have any daughters, as if she could have controlled that. I then asked her what she was most proud of in her life. Her answer? That she had found true love, stayed in love, and was still in love. Granny, you've waited 20 years to be with your one and only. Although we miss you tremendously, we're so happy you and Grandpa are finally together again. I hope you have a second first date, and perhaps you'll even go skating together. You weren't able to do that the first time around, and I know you would love nothing more than to be holding Grandpa's hand while gliding across the ice. Give him a big hug for us. We love you both so much, and Uncle Terry too. See you again someday soon.
Thank you, Nicole, for those beautiful remembrances. It just so beautifully captured Lolinda's essence and her character and her beautiful walk in life. Photos are a beautiful way to tell a story and to trigger memories. And as we have just heard wonderful remembrances, it really is fitting that we have photos that take us down memory lane for a continuation of Lolinda's story. I invite you to sit back and enjoy this video presentation that the family has shared with us.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why can't I?
I know your life on earth was troubled, and only you could know the pain, and weren't afraid to face the devil. You were no stranger to the rain. So go rest high on that mountain. Son, your work on earth is done. Go to heaven and shout in love for the Father and the Son.
Looking back on the memories of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
So go rest high on that mountain, 'cause son, your work on earth is done. So go to heaven and shout in love for the Father and the Son. So go to heaven and shout in love for the Father and the Son.
Thank you to Lolinda's family for sharing those great memories that were captured throughout the years. And you know, they always say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but in Lolinda's case, the picture truly is worth so much more. There were so many great moments in her life, and you couldn't miss that wonderful smile that she's had. Lolinda really made the most of her life, and the many ways that she touched our lives are the everlasting imprints on our hearts. Lolinda had many beautiful days in her journey, and can you even imagine the changes that she would have experienced in her lifetime? Being born in 1925 and watching the world evolve to our most current technology and ways of life, she experienced so many changes. From farm life to city life and back to the farm, she experienced it all. And Lolinda had an entrepreneurial spirit and was a true businesswoman. She thoroughly enjoyed her role on the egg farm, which later transitioned to RV storage. And she was so good with clients, and she made so many beautiful relationships. And this woman, with that incredible green thumb, suited rural life, and her garden and her flowers flourished. Family was important to Lolinda, and being present at various events brought her so much joy, and we saw that in the photographs that were captured. I'm sure you'll always remember some of those gatherings where she chatted the entire time, Christmas in particular, and that's because Lolinda had so much to say, and it helped that she stayed on top of current events by reading the paper on a daily basis and of course had her radio dial on to CJCA. Now, having a sister living in the United States gave Lolinda an interest in American politics. And watch out, because this topic of conversation would not be short and sweet, as many of you have encountered. Lolinda's pride and love for her family was unquestionably her greatest joy. And as time progressed, her family grew, and Granny loved her special place in life with grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Everyone had a special place in her heart. Family was the heart center of Lolinda's world and as well her wonderful purpose in life. Lolinda did not know the profound impact that she would have in this world and to every person who has met her. She was just that kind of a person. What was important to her was how she made a difference in your day. And it was all about you, not about her. So it's hard to fathom how life can change when you lose someone so close. And it makes it hard to believe that someone who was so full of life, who was so much a part of our lives, is no longer with us in a physical sense. Lolinda had so much to live for. She strived to reach her 100th year, and she worked hard at doing it. And she also had the youthfulness in her appearance to actually keep you guessing what her age really was. And yet, here we are on this part in the walk in our lives, experiencing feelings that are the opposite of what we've just reflected on. Grief never ends, but it does change over time. It changes with each minute. In your feelings, they will ebb and flow like a tide. And sometimes that water is just calm, and other times it's overwhelming and it feels like it will overtake you. But I want you to know what grief is. Grief really is love. And what you're feeling is love that you want to give, but you've lost the person to share it with. So I ask that you be gentle with yourselves, take one moment at a time, and ease into each day. And though you'll always miss her, you'll always have beautiful memories too. And it's not the forgetting that heals our hearts, it's remembering. And Lolinda made sure she gave you much to remember her by. Let's not wait to make changes that we've been putting off. Now really is the time to let people know how much they mean to you through your actions and through your words. And it's the time that you give to others that makes the difference. And how you make people feel is really what's remembered in the end. And Lolinda did just that. I now would like to share these words in thanks and gratitude to Lolinda. Lolinda Lucille Percheson, your family and friends are grateful for the experience of knowing you and having you here with them on this journey called life. Every heart is deeply touched by the love that you've shared with all of them. And we thank you for your love and your unending devotion to your children and your beautiful grandchildren and great-grandchildren. You loved unconditionally, and you guided them in their walk in life. There were so many wonderful aspects to your life. Your presence, the way you cared about people, are just some of the many ways that you've touched our lives. And in all of these ways and more, our lives were made richer and fuller. Your gifts in life will live on in our memories and our stories, and in what all of us have become because of you. You led by example the importance of family and to embrace every moment that we've been given. You always knew how to brighten someone's day and to make them feel special, and you stayed connected. So many lives have been touched by your genuineness, your honesty, and you showed us the value of appreciating the simple things in life. Life will be different, but you truly left the world a better place because you were in it. They will laugh at all the fun times that you were a part of or created. And they will cry. because you are missed so deeply. Just know that you gave the best that you've had, and you accomplished more than one can imagine. And Lolinda, may you carry with you the never-ending love of your family and your friends who have gathered here today, and those who have you in their thoughts and forever close to their hearts. Before we end our service today, I'd like to thank Lolinda's family, Dennis and Linda and Nicole and Dion, for our shared time together, for sharing stories and remembrances, and for allowing me to walk beside you and lead our time together today. And I hope that in some way it really helped to comfort your hearts and focusing on happy moments and just really knowing that Mom made such a beautiful difference in your lives. I'd like to thank all the staff at Evergreen Funeral Home for their care and compassion for Lolinda's family, and of course, for welcoming all of us here into the funeral home today. At the conclusion of the service, the family will partake in Linda's interment at the cemetery, and your attendance at graveside is welcomed. Please remain in your seats until the funeral home staff have come forward and provided you guidance out of the chapel. Following the interment, the family invites you to join them in the reception center for a time of gathering, sharing of stories, and light refreshments. And for those who are unable to join us at graveside, you're more than welcome to make your way into the reception center and begin your time with a refreshment as you wait, and we will join you shortly. Lolinda's family are, of course, experiencing a huge loss. And so it's a comfort for the family to have your presence both here in the chapel and online, and to be surrounded in your warm and supportive thoughts, and to know that they're not alone on this path. And I thank you on behalf of the family. I welcome you in joining me in reciting the Lord's Prayer. And if you wish, you can take this time to reflect inwardly. I ask that you bow your heads and join me as I say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. My wish for all of you is that we can move forward with a sense of comfort that Lolinda lived a full and beautiful life in the time that she had. Give her life a continued purpose by doing what you love most about her. Be that person. That could be your way to say thank you or I love you for the way that she has brightened your lives. Each moment that you've had together has been imprinted on your hearts in a very special way. So she'll always remain with you as a part of you, just as you were very much a part of her. And there are so many facets to this incredible woman, and she truly sparkled like a diamond in the glistening sun. Most of all, I ask that you remember her infectious smile, those eyes that really held the depth of her love for all of you, and her hugs, those big hugs that made you feel loved in a way that words fail to describe. Where a beautiful soul has been, a trail of memories are left behind. As we conclude our time together, I wish each one of you comfort for your sorrow, courage for each new day, strength to face this journey, and I wish you peace to fill your hearts. Thank you.
Heard there was a secret chord
that David played and it pleased the Lord. You don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.